Story 1. So when I took my kids to my aunt's house for this year's Thanksgiving, because my mom passed away recently and my aunt is the closest thing to a grandmother they have. I'm a single mom raising 2 boys and I try my best to give them all the experiences, even though they don't have a proper family. So we went down to my aunt's house on Thursday. The next day, my boss called me in for work because of an emergency and I had to step out of the house for a few hours. I didn't think that a few hours could cause a chaos like the one I saw when I came back. As soon as I entered the hallway after returning, my aunt came limping out and started screaming at me. She was talking SHT about my boys and saying they don't deserve to be loved. She said I had produced monsters instead of kids and I should kick them out of the house right now for what they did. She said that even military schools wouldn't be able to straighten the likes of them and they are a complete waste of space. I was baffled by this strong reaction. And as much as I wanted to tell her, I'd rather kick her out before I even look at my kids with a bad glance. I controlled myself and took a deep breath. I asked her what happened, and why was she saying all that awful stuff about my kids. I assumed maybe it's because we're meeting for the first time in a year after my mom's passing. But even then, she wouldn't just start hating my kids for no reason. There must be something valid to her reaction and maybe, if we talked, we could sort it out. My aunt was huffing and puffing, but finally she looked like she'd be able to hold a conversation without shouting any more profanities. When she had collected herself, she went and sat down on the armchair and told me that my kids made a scheme to harm her and then followed through. They tied a rope in front of her bedroom door and then Andrew, my 7-year-old, knocked at her bedroom door and said that there's a fire in the kitchen. She came out hurriedly and didn't notice the rope at the bottom, tied across the door frame, and tripped badly. But that was not all. While she was lying down in pain, Thomas, my 9-year-old, came running and jumped on her while trying to go down the stairs. It was obvious he hit her on purpose, but proceeded to say, "Whoops, didn't see you there," and hurried away. She had hurt her hip and her knee. Her chin was throbbing because it hit the corner of the stairs, and she could hear my kids trying to stifle their laughs. When she was done telling me her side, I couldn't believe her instantly. I mean, if she would have said that they tried to prank her, I would have totally trusted her words. My kids prank me too occasionally, but they never, ever have caused serious harm to anyone. I mean, Andrew doesn't even squash bugs. Whenever he sees a bug he tries to catch it or gets Thomas to catch it so they can release it outside. How can I believe that they harmed my aunt on purpose? So I told her I'd talk to them and if they are really at fault then I'll deal with them. So I went into my kids' room in which they've locked themselves so my aunt couldn't hurt them. When I told them it's me, they let me in and then hurriedly closed the door behind me. I asked them why their aunt hurt so badly and what they were trying to do, and they said they wanted her to be hurt. I was shocked at this reply. I didn't understand where this behavior of theirs was coming from. So I asked them why they want to hurt her when they know hurting people in any way is wrong and would cause more trouble for them. At this Thomas told me that they had seen something last night that was wrong, and decided to punish their aunt for what she did. I was so lost at this point. I just wanted somebody to make sense. So I asked Thomas to explain to me exactly what happened that might make them so aggressive, and instead of saying anything, he showed me a video. He said it's from yesterday when I was out for my evening run. They couldn't tell me anything yesterday because after I came back I was with my aunt, until late and this morning I left for work in a hurry. The video was of her bedroom and I could not believe what I was seeing. My aunt was sitting with her dog, there was a harness around the dog's mouth and stop him from biting or barking. But even if there was no harness I doubt that dog could have made any sound. That was not all. My aunt was burning him with her cigarette butt and when she was done with her cigarette she got up to go out, and on her way she kicked him hard. I had to look away for a second because of the cruelty. I did wonder about the dog last night and asked her why it stays in her bedroom. She said that the dog is very old and lazy and doesn't bother strangers. She also said that he has bad separation anxiety, and that's why she doesn't force him to come out and play when people are visiting. Now that I've seen this video I was mentally kicking myself. I asked Thomas when did he record this and he said it was when both of them were going downstairs to get something to eat and they saw their aunt doing this to the dog. Andrew said they were scared that their aunt would hurt them too and that's why. They didn't do anything to stop her. But Thomas recorded it, just in case I didn't believe them. At this point I was crying out of anger. How can anyone be this cruel to a dog? They are the most loyal animals and deserve so much love and care. Now I know the dog isn't mine, but I'm planning to file a case against her for dog cruelty. I'm also going to sneakily take away that dog tonight and visit an animal clinic to get him checked. I mean, there's a risk my aunt might charge me for stealing her dog. But what choice do I have? Also, I wanted to praise my kids for hurting that human piece of junk. But instead I told them what they did was wrong and they should have let me handle the matter. I didn't want to praise the violence but I also feel like I'm teaching them to be quiet if something goes wrong. Does that make me spineless and in awe? Am I failing in parenting? So as I was planning, I tried to take the dog away, but unfortunately my aunt caught me trying to sneak in, and I tried to find an excuse, but my anger took over me. I could see the dog lying at the foot of the bed, and I felt a wave of hate towards my aunt like I've never experienced before. I told her that I was there to take the dog away because she's an awful person and doesn't deserve a loyal pet like that. But instead of trying to stop me, she just laughed and said I could try. I didn't understand why she would just laugh, but I didn't care about that. I went ahead and tried to get the dog to come with me, but he just looked at me and stayed where he was. Then I tried to pat him, but as soon as my hand was near him, he went nuts and started to howl like crazy. He was trying to run away from me and towards my aunt. Honestly, my heart broke when I saw that. I could see his burnt fur and his bones practically sticking out of his chest, and yet this dog was abused so much that he's scared of anyone coming even within 10 inches of him, and he's running to his abuser to protect her. But there was nothing I could do at that point. I knew I needed to call the experts who know how to handle an abused dog, so I woke up my kids and we left my aunt's house that night. Now I've officially filed a report against her, and they are sending animal care specialists down to her house to take the dog away. I am going to go with them because my kids begged me to bring him with us, and I've decided to adopt him. So remember the case I filed against my aunt because she abused her dog. Well, my kids were asked to be a witness for that case, but I didn't let them go. I didn't want them anywhere near the legal, so I told them I'd be their witness and they can use the recording to further their case. I mean, the dog's condition was enough proof to charge my aunt with animal cruelty, so I don't know why they need more proof and they're not just sentencing her. Either way, my kids have already seen enough cruelty in this world, and I'm not sending them to be chewed out by some lord jumping hyenas. As for the dog, he's being treated at an animal shelter for his wounds. Turns out he had a broken bone in his chest, and more than just cigarette burns on his body. God knows for how long he has been the target of my aunt's frustration, but I am glad he's finally getting the care he deserves. They called me in a few days ago because they were finally able to get him to calm down enough to not be scared by approaching humans, and we were finally introduced. I can't wait for him to recover so we can bring him home. So finally my aunt's case came to an end, and she was charged with a Class C misdemeanor for the felony of knowingly causing harm to an animal. She's sentenced to 3 months in prison and a fine of $600. I'm glad she'll do the time for her crime, but I still think she deserves much worse. Her laugh from that night still fills me with hate, and I hope one day I'll be able to forget about her. Also, on a good note, we brought the dog to our home a few days ago and we named him Shadow. He's still too weak to run around the house, but his recovery rate is great, and the vet said we could take him out on walks in about 2 weeks. On his first day he was scared and didn't come out of my room, but gradually my kids were able to gain his trust, and now he stays in the living room with us. Every time I see him my heart hurts, but I'm glad that he's finally getting the love that all animals deserve. NTA, your aunt needs to be sent to jail, and I hope they treat her like SHT in there. I hope she's put into solitary confinement, and when she's scared all she could think about was the only thing that protected someone nasty like her while she literally tortured him. NTA, no way, you're the a-hole and you're doing a fine-ass job of parenting those kids. If I was there I would have cheered them on while they took revenge from your aunt for hurting the dog. Story 2. I, 28 female, was renting a house from my mom and needed a roommate to help with the bills. My roommate, 21 female, had never lived on her own before, and I had to deal with basically teaching her how to live with someone that's not your family, as well as the simple things like don't flush your tampons. She caused many sewer backups because of this. My roommate has a very entitled sense about herself. When she moved in, my mom interviewed her and told her that she would be selling the house to my sister and her husband in October 2022, so she needed to be out by the end of September. My roommate agreed, saying that it was fine, and signed the lease. Fast forward, we're now at the end of September. I just closed on a house for myself, and my sister has closed on the house I currently live in. My mom has been telling the both of us since July that we needed to find other places to live. My roommate called my mom saying that she needs another month in the house as she hasn't found anywhere to live. My mom explained to her that the house was no longer hers, so she doesn't have a say, but my mom, being the kind-hearted and selfless woman she is, she called my sister and asked if my roommate could stay a little longer. My sister agreed to a week. My mom tells my roommate, and my roommate flips, saying that she was being cruel and how dare she kick someone out on the street. My mom said that when she signed the lease she knew she had to be out at the end of September, and then reminded her of the constant reminders she gave us that we had to be out. My mom asked if she had even checked out any places. My roommate said no, and that she just figured that I would ask her to move in with me again since I bought a 2-bedroom home. She said she thought that I was finally financially stable enough to live on my own, and that's what I was going to do. She then told me I was being selfish and should be on her side because she was about to get kicked out. I told her that my mum was in the right and she was given more than enough warning and had told me she was looking, which she was not. She started yelling at both of us, calling us names, and telling my mum that she's going to sue her because of all the trauma this is causing her. All my mum kept asking me about was, am I wrong? Should I have just let her stay? Both me and my sister said no, since this is no longer her house and she had a lease written up for the place that notice that my roommate signed. I would like to note that my mum had told her she didn't have to pay September's rent, as she knew finding a place is tough and cost a lot of money. So are we the a-holes for telling my roommate she has to leave? NTA, and she's not going to waste her time and money suing when she had a lease with a September end date, and was given generous reminders about the looming date. She doesn't have a leg to stand on here and she knows that. She's still young enough to think that threatening someone with a lawsuit sounds scary enough to get your way. The reality is that it's a simple contract case and she signed a lease that ended in September. She agreed to the terms and can't change the rules of play in the middle of the game. If she won't leave, your mom can file for an eviction, which when granted, would drastically limit her rental options moving forward. People tend not to want to rent to a person who had to be forcibly evicted. NTA, your roommate has taken to having everything handed to them on a plate, and expected this situation to be the same. Point her in the direction of a rental agency or back towards her family if she has any. Then go on your way. She will learn self-sufficiency, but it may be a slog, and she will likely hit rock bottom. But some people can't be told and have to pull themselves out of their own holes. Female, inherited my grandma's house after she died. We were incredibly close. I spent every weekend with her, and she heavily influenced me to study what I do now, forensics, as that was what she would have done had she the opportunity. She always told me that she was going to give me her house when she was gone, a 3-bedroom. Story 3. I have 4 other cousins on my grandma's side from my uncle, but they don't live in my country. All of them got some amount of her money, but nothing material like I did, except for Molly, 28, female, who got nothing, and she never phoned my grandma, never thanked her for gifts, ignored her altogether, didn't go to her funeral either. I live in the house as I don't mind that too much. Last week Molly came to our city unexpectedly. No one else in my family knew except for maybe her siblings. She went to my great-aunt originally to ask for good places to stay and was then pointed over to me. She asked me if she could stay with me for the duration of her being in the city and I refused. I told her that she had the audacity to come to me and ask to stay in our grandma's old house when she hadn't spoken to me in over 15 years and when she hadn't even gone to the funeral. She told me I was being unreasonable and that it wasn't right to hold the past against her when she wanted to regain a bond. Grandma died 6 years ago. I told her that I had no interest in a bond with her and sent her away. Issue is, no one else in my family has room for her. And now I'm getting ganged up on, my great-aunt and her side, who all think I'm being petty and should let her stay just to see what happens. Maybe something good. I don't agree. And Molly has been staying in a hotel since she showed up. They haven't stopped whining to me, though, and one of my cousins, Molly's brother, who I'm close to, phoned me and asked me to give her a chance. I firmly refused. I don't know. Am I being unreasonable? AITA. Molly is staying for a few months. Don't know the reason. I'm not interested and haven't asked. MTA. You're not obligated to do anything. You're certainly not obligated to share your home, even if this were a close family member. You're not obligated to give anyone a chance to redeem themselves. Even if you wanted to give them a shot, having them at ground zero in your home doesn't seem like the best place to try. Because if it's not working, what, now you have to kick them out of your house. If they are truly interested, it sure seems like curious timing, as in, at the same time, they need something. If for some reason you want to appease any of your own curiosity, take her up on making amends, but only on neutral ground, and see how she reacts. You can explain, or not, considering that she's more or less been a stranger, you just weren't comfortable having her in your home. Or she can go screw herself. LOL, I'd have made the same call as you. And if the rest of the family is so excited about Molly, she can stay with them. You know that if she gets her foot in your door, you'll need the jaws of life to them.